Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Hall. Reed should be here very, very soon. He's running late for work, as always, of course. But the title of this episode is The Bills Are Here. And speaking of that, I just wanted to say that Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listofrederick.com. So we decided, why not bring in our guy, familiar face, guest of this show, Mr. Lorenzo Alexander, to kind of talk about these two teams. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing good. Out here in Paradise Valley right now, actually flying to town tonight so I can enjoy the festivities with some of the other legends that'll be in town. But I'm actually on my way to my daughter's flag football game that I coach in high school for.
Nice.
Oh, wow. I was actually going to ask you if you were coming this weekend. I'm glad that you already answered that question for me. Are you excited to be able to see who are some teammates you're looking forward to seeing that you know are going to be there?
There's a ton of guys. Devin Thomas, Rod Cartwright, Chris Wilson, Kedrick Golston will be around. Always good to catch up with London when I see him. I think it's a couple of hundred guys that'll be there. Anthony Armstrong's another guy. So it's a ton of guys. You know, when I looked at the list, there was at least 30 or 40 guys that I play with that are coming back. So it should be a fun weekend.
Whew.
Yeah, no, it definitely sounds like a good time. I don't know if you've talked to anybody, obviously, recently since the sale went down and how, obviously the team's kind of on a roll right now, 2-0, first time since 2011. Just if you've talked to anybody or just from the outside kind of looking in from where you're at now, how is the kind of just the vibe or from you see it of the DMV and just around the football team right now?
Well, you can see the fans, definitely have come back out and are supporting, right? I think any time that you transition away from a culture that was as chaotic as it was, and then you bring in a guy, obviously I don't think he's the majority owner, but a guy like Magic Johnson that's been kind of like the face of this transition along with the new ownership group. People are excited, right? I think that's one of the things I'm excited about, right? Somebody that has been a player, has made that transition, and has really developed an empire. Guys are excited to be around people like that and the people that they associate themselves with. And so I think that's the excitement around it, good people, good culture. And I think that's what this organization and this fan base deserves. And I'm looking forward to seeing the Commanders really thrive under this new direction. And obviously they're off to a good start, but it's a long season and they got to continue to put these wins, kind of stack them up, as well as just continue to get better and compete and play consistent, good football.
Yeah, and speaking of that, we got to talk about this matchup this weekend, Lorenzo. The Bills' offense is top 10 in a lot of categories. Third down percentage, they're 6th, and points per game, they're 8th. So let's talk about their quarterback, Josh Allen. You being a defender, defensive end, you played everywhere on the defense. How is your opinion of Josh Allen's play this year? Obviously, they're 1-1. The first game against the Jets, not his best performance, but so far, what have you seen from Josh Allen?
Josh is Josh. Josh is typically going to have those type of games where he, has, 3 or 4 turnovers. He normally has 1 or 2 a year. And it really comes down to being disruptive. And I think the Commanders have a great defensive line as well. When you think about the Jets and how they matched up with them, that's what you have to have. You have to be able to stop the run, which they're capable of doing, and then getting after him by rushing forward, making him hold on to the ball and feel like he has to fit it into tight spaces. Because he will do that. He will. He has the arm to do it. He's shown that he's able to do it, right? But if you can capitalize on it by getting to him, hitting him, and maybe getting him off a little bit, having your offense, create a little pressure as well, moving the ball, then sometimes he feels like he has to play beyond himself, and that's when he gets in trouble. But other than that, this is a solid offense. When the way they ran the ball last week with Cooks, spread the ball around between Dawson, the new young tight end as well. You think about Diggs and Davis, Kincaid. Yeah, they have weapons all over the place. So the Commanders going to have their hands full. But if the defensive line can put them behind the sticks, right, make it really tough for Cook to get started, as well as Harris in that run game, they'll have a shot as far as putting pressure and making Josh maybe make a mistake or two.
And speaking of that, Josh Allen is number 1 in the NFL right now in completion percentage at a 76.9 clip, which is insane. Hall?
Yeah, definitely insane. He's definitely, like I said, one of those top 5, top 7 quarterbacks you gotta definitely be like careful of and look out for. But obviously, you've rushed after the passer. You played defense before, and Josh Allen, like you talked about, they get him involved in the run game. He gets outside the pocket, kind of creates. He can scramble for those third down conversions. What is something that Chase Young, Montez Sweat, and the rest of these guys in the defensive line are going to have to do to kind of just keep him contained in the pocket and make him have a rough day on Sunday?
Beat your one-on-one matchups. I mean, I think if you think of a weakness that the Bills have had over the last 2 or 3 years, it's really been up front, right? The lack of consistency across the board, and it's typically 1 or 2 guys. I think Mitch Morris has been consistent. Dion has been very consistent playing the tackle spot. But you have a couple of other guys that have kind of popped in and popped out and really haven't solidified themselves as a group. And so if they can create pressure, which I think this group can, because they've been deep for a long time, you get Chase back amongst obviously the rest of that core, you create a lot of matchup issues for this offensive line. And I think that's what the Jets was able to exploit early on. And so again, if you can stop the run, put these guys in longer distances, you have some opportunities to win some of those matchups just because of the talent that the Commanders have on the defensive line aspect, and they really can wreck a game from that aspect, much like the Jets did in week 1.
Yeah, we saw Deron Payne do that on 3 plays to start the second half last week, Lorenzo. But speaking of that, we got to talk about our guy, the gunslinger here. We've wasted so much time. We haven't even brought him up, but we talked about Josh Allen. Mr. Sam Howell, what have you seen out of this young quarterback? It's kind of crazy to think that last weekend was his 3rd start in the NFL. Didn't seem like that. In your opinion, how is Sam Howell playing right now?
I didn't get a chance to watch him too much last week, but the first week I thought he was poised, right? He didn't execute high like early on. I think it was some receivers that he left open. I cover the Arizona Cardinals being out here in Phoenix, so I watched some of that film, especially against the Arizona Cardinals defense. But he's progressing, right? And that's what you want to be able to see a guy do under obviously a new offensive coordinator, a lack of experience. You want to see them continue to incrementally get better and find ways to win the game. And that's what he's been able to do. And so I think the more experience you get, the more understanding, the more comfort, the more things you see, he's only going to get better. When you think about EB and who he's been around, and they chose him for a reason, right? And coaching him up, I think he's in a great space right now as far as developing as a quarterback. And we just want to see that continue. And this is another great test when you think about the Buffalo Bills defense and the guys they have on the back end, right? Poyer, Micah Hyde, Tre'Davious White. You got Matt Milano, and then that's not even mentioning their defensive line. And the several guys they have, Ed Oliver, Greg Russo, right? They got Tim Settle, who's a former Washington player, right?
Yep.
So they got a lot of guys that can get after him. So this week, I think, will be a great barometer for Sam Howell and how he can command his team against a premier defense. The first couple of weeks, even though the Broncos are supposed to have this great defense, they haven't been playing up to par. And so I think this will be his biggest test yet. And I think even, not Jack, but they talked about this game being a measuring stick this week for their team, trying to see how they stack up against one of the elite football teams in the Buffalo Bills, because that's where they want to be, right? 2-0, got some great pieces. So how can we continue to do this? And Ron Rivera, 1,000 names go in my mind. I can't think of Ron Rivera's name. Ron Rivera said that about his football team, right? This is a great measuring stick this week to make sure that they're trending in the right direction. They may not win the game, but we want to be competitive and have a shot to win the game. And if they win it, that'd be a great top to where they want to go and what they've established under this new direction in leadership and culture.
Yeah, and talk about that Bills defense. They're 5th in points per game. They are 8th in red zone percentage, and they are 6th against passing yards. To your point, Lorenzo, it's going to be a big test for this offense.
Yeah, and your point of – oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, so, again, Commanders running the ball. If there's been Achilles heel of the Bills defense over the last 2 or 3 years, it's been not being able to stop the run consistently. And so, you get some of those running backs going early. Robinson, who's a big back, get him downhill, pound him a little bit. That has kind of been the kryptonite of this defense where they've struggled at times. And so if you can get the ball rolling there with some play action, they'll definitely have some opportunities from the Commanders' perspective.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off that, you kind of just answered it, but um, Washington just put up 30 plus. I think it was 35 points against Denver this past Sunday, and it kind of, I guess, put people on not really notice, but kind of, I guess, opened some people's eyes, like just because of some of the throws that Sam Howell was able to make, and just kind of how he looked on his first road start, especially in a hostile place like Denver. And so obviously the Bills can put up points, high powered offense, a lot of weapons. Do you think that Washington can kind of go toe to toe and make it a shootout if it comes to that, and have a chance to win, or you think it's going to be one of those you have to run the ball, grind it out, and kind of just grind it out like a low scoring type of game to get the win?
Yeah, we'll see what that looks like. I know it's supposed to rain this weekend too. I know it's raining
Right.
Saturday
Yeah.
because I can't get out there and play any golf like I want to. I was calling
Oh.
this one tee time. I ain't playing in no rain. So if it's a rainy game, I don't know if it'll be necessarily a shootout. I think they have big play potential, but I just don't. I mean, you never want to get in a shootout with the Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs, right? That's just really hard to sustain if you try to do that. Do you have the ability to do? Yeah, because you got Scary Terry. You got some guys, Logan out there that can play, Thomas. But to consistently go down, take shots, score quickly, that's not a game that I necessarily want to play with teams like the Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs and some of those high-powered Miami Dolphins, right? I don't want to do that because I don't have the same type of guns necessarily as they do if you think about it from a holistic standpoint.
I totally agree with you there. Now let's move. Last couple of questions I have for you, Lorenzo. I know you got to go. You got to go coach and do your great thing there. But Eric Bienemy spoke to reporters today. I know that you watched the film against Arizona, but you being familiar with Washington, you kind of know about the offensive production at this point. What you saw on film at Week 1, talk about Eric Bienemy's impact on this football team.
Right, it comes down to consistency and to be able to execute. I know one of the big things that because in Week 1 they should have probably blown the Cardinals out. It shouldn't have been that close, but they had a couple of those turnovers, right?
Yep.
So it's always come down to really the first 4 weeks is always about fundamentals, right? Can I protect the football? Can I block? Can I tackle? And they didn't protect the football well. There's a couple of red zone turnovers that was easily at least 3 points they probably would have got out of it, if not touchdowns that took points off the board and allowed the Cardinals to kind of stay relevant in that game. And so that is the biggest thing that typically is the hardest thing to kind of get guys to do because they're competing, right? You're trying hard, but it's not like it's a lack of execution or scheme thing. It's you being able to hold on to the football. And so if they can do those things, not beat themselves, pre-snap penalties, those are ultimately drive killers. So if I can see them growing from that, minimizing turnovers, minimizing pre-snap penalties, playing good sound football, this offense with Bienemy's mind and the way he attacks people and the people he's been around and how he game plans, they can put up points.
Yeah.
But the biggest difference between normally average teams and good teams is protecting the football and those pre-snap penalties.
And to their defense, they did not turn over the football last week, and they put up 35 points without any turnovers or anything, Lorenzo. So like they're responding. I think Eric Bienemy is doing a great job, Lorenzo. Next question I have for you. I want to ask you about the screen game because last week it kind of worked for Washington and getting like Cole Turner the football, getting Antonio Gibson utilized in that game. Is that something that you as a defensive end was something hard for you to kind of adjust to?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's hard to adjust to.
Poor use of words.
Yeah. I mean, it's more about like the flow of the game. Like if I'm eating, I'm getting pressure. Yeah, it's hard to adjust to. And typically you do that to slow down guys, right? Make them think that you may throw a screen. Right. But at the end of the day, those are hustle plays, right? Putting your foot in the ground, reacting, responding, and getting all the guys to the ball. And whether or not, picking at the right time when to do it. And honestly, that's another probably concept. If I think about some of the bigger plays against the Buffalo Bills have been design screens. And so that could be something they want to employ at the proper time to catch some guys off balance and maybe to slow down their rush as well, because they were humming last week. And really it's just almost like an extended run play. Let me stay ahead of the sticks. It's pretty safe. Get 4 or 5 yards right. Now I'm not looking at 2nd and 8, 2nd and 9. Now I'm looking at maybe 2nd and 5 or 6, depending on how effective it is. And that's just as good as, running inside zone or outside zone and getting 4.5 yards to carry. So I think it's just a different way of adding to your run game, but allowing multiple people to get their hands on the ball.
And Lorenzo, real quick, yes or no question. I know you got to go. If Washington were able to beat the Bills this weekend, do you think that is a legitimate playoff contending team now?
Woo, yeah. Why wouldn't they be?
Yeah,
that means that they can play high in football. Yeah, so I would agree with that. Yeah, they got the ability to do it. They just got to consistently. That's the hard thing, right, in football.
Yeah.
Week in and week out, right? You can beat teams. Most teams can beat teams, but if you can sustain it, and so then they know that they have the ability to. I think that's a huge confidence boost, and they can ride that to some more victories and really position themselves for one of those wild card spaces.
All right, Lorenzo, I can't thank you enough for joining us, taking some time out, holding your phone the entire time. It's got to be tiring to say doing a point. Lorenzo, I can't thank you enough. I hope you enjoy the alumni weekend. Make sure you tell Anthony he's a good friend of our show. Tell him we said what's up. We'd love to be able to see him one day. But I appreciate you, sir. Enjoy your night and your weekend.
All right, fellas, man. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Lorenzo.
Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. We just talked with the man, Mr. Lorenzo Alexander, the gadget man.
Yes, sir. Mr. Utility.
Dude, all over the field he was. I mean, Mike Shanahan used him everywhere. And, always love to be able to talk to him. But now we are joined by our co-host, Mr. Michael Reed, who I promise you guys is not driving right now. Absolutely not.
No, I would never do that ever, because I'm a good old boy. I'm a good boy. I like to abide by the rules.
Yes, you do. And now, guys, let's preview this game coming up. The Bills, the alumni weekend, we kind of talked about it. The Bills are coming in as 6.5-point favorites in this matchup. How are you feeling about it, Hall? What is one area in particular you are concerned about looking ahead of this game?
It's gonna have to be just like the past two games, the start of the game and the beginning of the game. Like, obviously the defense has come out and had, especially against Denver last week, went down big, 21-3. Against the Cardinals, kind of had a little bit of a slow start as well. So I just want them to come out and not have that slow start. Just, get off the field, a couple downs, or maybe a quick 3-and-out if you start on defense. But maybe the defense, like I said, just don't come out and have another slow start. Because if you go down early against a team like the Bills, who obviously the weather's might play a factor, but they can put points on the board. And I don't know if they go down early enough like they did in the against Denver or something like that, it's going to be able to sustain it on defense while also trying to come back on offense. So just get off to a quick, steady, slow or fast start, and don't have the mental lapses like they did on Sunday against the Broncos.
Yeah, and what we kind of talked about with Lorenzo, they kind of made those adjustments, right? They were not consistent in the mistakes last week, and obviously that has to continue against the Buffalo Bills. They're a team that capitalize on interceptions. They're third on forcing interceptions right now at 1.5 per game, and also they're 14th in fumbles, averaging 1 per game. But what about you, Reed? What is one area you're looking at for this football team saying, look, this needs to get done?
Look, obviously Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I know he started slow, but he does turn the ball over. He does make dumb plays. So if we can get after him, force him out of the pocket to do one, he's not going to slide. Josh Allen's going to try to jump over everybody and hang that ball out there. And hopefully, if we can force him out of the pocket, we can get some turnovers and really just locking down somebody like Stephon Diggs. It's going to take. I mean, Stephon Diggs is still an elite wide receiver. He's still very good. They've got a lot of options on the team, but as long as you can get like Emmanuel Forbes or Kendall Fuller or Benjamin St. Juste, they're really going to need to use a team effort to kind of lock them and make those errant throws that he will make a few times a game.
Yeah, I like that one that you did, because when you look at the Bills' offense, like statistically, they're sixth in third down percentage. They're 8th in points per game. They're 7th in red zone percentage. They're 7th in rushing yards, 10th in passing yards. But they're 26th in interceptions per, averaging 1.5 per game. Obviously, the Jets game has a lot to do with that, and obviously Washington is tied for 9th at the moment with 0.5 per game. But this team in particular with the Bills, it's going to be hard to force Josh Allen into that scenario. The Jets did the perfect thing, like we kind of talked about it. The kind of way you want to go into this game is saying, hey, we want to force the game to be close, in order to frustrate Josh Allen. Because that's when Josh Allen makes those mistakes, to your point, Reed. For me personally, grand scheme, I think this game comes down to how many points the defense could keep the Bills down to. Limit their points as much as possible. As much as I love to say that the offense needs to score 45, I think it's much more about the defense giving up the points more than anything. But I will say the one thing I'm looking at more than anything is the third down percentage on offense. Right now they're 28th, averaging 31.9 or 31.8 conversion percentage, which isn't good at all because they're doing well offensively, and we've seen they put up points. They put up 35 last week, but the point is they have to continue to sustain those drives because if the Bills defense are forcing them off the field, you're giving Josh Allen an ample amount of opportunities to be able to put points on you, and that's the last thing that we want to do here. But guys, let's answer some fan questions to talk about this episode a little bit more, and obviously we got our fan questions coming in here with the Colonel here. This one to you, Hall. A week ago, I wanted to ask you guys who had the biggest chance of getting canned. Cameron Cheeseman, Antonio Gibson, or Joey Sly. It appears AG has pulled himself, at least temporarily, out of his fumbling slump. However, Cheeseman and Sly continue to be 2/3 of a bumbling mess. How are we going to fix this, Hall?
Yeah, they brought in some long snappers during the week, and I guess they worked them out, had some little tryouts. They didn't end up signing any of these players. I think they're going to give Cheeseman a little bit more rope, see if he can correct himself and get it right. And as far as Joey Sly goes, I'm not going to put as much blame on him yet just because of the snaps and how the snaps have been going as far as Tressway having to be Trey Turner and scoop the ball up like a shortstop every couple snaps. So if the snaps get corrected and Joey Sly starts missing and shanking stuff left or right or missing field goals, then you can kind of put the spotlight on him a little bit more. But as of right now, it's up to Cheeseman to correct himself. And if he doesn't correct it, as Ron called it, they had a information gathering or a gathering of information on these other guys that are out there. So I don't think they'll hesitate, even though Ron's really loyal to his guys. I don't think they'll hesitate to make a decision if it comes down to that.
Well, and I also was making the point that obviously Tressway is close to Cheeseman. I'm not sure if Cheeseman had something going off the field that is kind of messing him up a little bit in his head. Never know.
And that's why I think that they're giving him a little bit more rope because that's Tressway's guy, and like obviously like have trust and Tress. So they're like, all right, we're gonna give your guy another game. So if he comes out against the Bills and has some more bad snaps or maybe some mishaps, I think that the Cheeseman experiment might cut the cheese like everyone's been saying on Twitter for the past 2 weeks.
How are they going to fix it, though? I think Cheeseman just needs to – Tressway has been bailing him out a lot, and Tressway is a good man for doing that, not throwing him under the bus. Cheeseman's got to get his stuff together. He's got to pull himself up by the bootstraps and get on with his life. Tress needs to kick him in the ass a little bit and say, let's go, dude. Would you rather be – on the street having to worry about these issues, or would you rather be a professional long snapper with this football team that's 2-0 right now? Get your crap together. I know you can do this. And it's kind of like a mental thing for me personally. What do you think, Reed?
Didn't Markelle Fultz go through this? It's called the yips. Remember Markelle Fultz just like forgot how to shoot? Like it just completely blanked. But no, it's like a serious thing. Like it has happened to athletes in the past, like even before Markelle Fultz. So
look at Ben Simmons.
I don't know.
Look at Reed in high school.
Right. Look at me in high school. Right. I just forgot that I I'm not going to say it. Anyway, anyway, Kyle, getting me off base. I'm an ally, dude. I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, no, he's got a case of the yips. We got to just supply that man with all the Adderall we can so he remembers and unlocks parts of his brain like Bradley Cooper in Limitless said he didn't know that he had.
Yes, absolutely. The next question from the Colonel. I will double my resolve to win Burgundy Zone Alpha Fantasy League this year after having my win taken away last night. I went to bed 2-0 and woke up 1-1 after an adjustment to Eagles overnight. Are these adjustments common in ESPN's fantasy leagues? And if so, might we be looking at a different venue next year?
I've never been a fan of ESPN fantasy leagues.
I like it the best more than NFL or Yahoo. For me personally, I like it. I have heard about their point adjustments before, but what the problem is that usually when that happens, it's not a close matchup to where the win separates. It's not like anybody's complaining, really, Colonel. And so that's probably what happened is the common adjustment. I think it probably was like a 10-yard play or not. They gave a catch to them that they weren't supposed to. And it's unfortunate, that they do it out of nowhere and they don't tell you about it, because that's a crappy way to do it, man. Especially you go to bed all happy, you wake up and you're like, wait, I'm 1-1? But at least you're not 0-2. That would be even worse.
Yeah, and I mean, like you, I'm a ESPN fan. NFL's fine. Yahoo, I'm like, on. But yeah, I've never had the stat correction happen to me. I know that it happened to, like, I think Sazzy in our big league or somebody happened to. But like you said, it wasn't like a thing where like it was like a win or a loss swing type of thing. So that does suck. But I think that was like a once in a blue moon type of thing where it actually like decided the game because of an adjustment.
I agree with you there, sir. Now let's move on to our fan questions. And this one's from Scott Hartley in the UK. Oi! In our Discord chat server. Reed, if we win Sunday, do you think this sends a message and statement to the league and the national media that we are a franchise on the up? And how much of a percentage chance do you give us to getting the win?
Yeah, dude. I mean, for sure. I mean, you look at CBS has us ranked 8th in the power rankings. So I mean, we're definitely on the rise. I think, especially like against a good team like the Bills, like if they can pull this off, even though the Bills obviously haven't started the way that they wanted to, they've gotta put some respect on a name. You know what I'm saying? And I'm giving us a decent chance, man. The Bills are not playing that good. We are playing fantastic for, I don't know, maybe like 2.5 to 3/4 a game. And I'm all right with that right now. As long as you can get the win at the end, I'm all right with that. You know what? I'm going with 100% chance we win this goddamn game. 100%. 100% chance.
Stop using the Lord's name in vain, Reed. We talked about this.
Stop assuming my gender to that guy on the book. You can't control me. You can't muzzle me.
Yeah, but Scott, I do believe that it will send a message to the national media. Like, obviously for us in the fan base, we've kind of have been seeing this grow a little by here and there. Obviously there was a lot of doubt heading into the season, but after that kind of week where you head in with all those expectations and they kind of dumb it down a little bit, they don't do all that well that you really want them to. But then the Denver game, it kind of really shows you where this football team is. And so the 35 points, them being right now 7th in the league in points per game, I think it's absolutely incredible. Like, think about, because we talked about before the season, like we said if they could be in the mid tier, and these are the first 2 games and they're already at 7th best in the league. And that was unheard of with talking about being a third-year quarterback, and they're averaging that many points. It's absolutely insane to me. So, yeah, obviously they're going to catch on, and I think doing it against a good opponent like this with the Bills is obviously very important. But on top of that, this is very important for Washington growing and maturing into a championship football team. A couple years ago against the Bills, it was a younger brother, older brother kind of feel to that game. We were just trying to hold on for dear life as long as we can until they separated themselves. So this is why this matchup this weekend is so important in the maturation process of this team. Have they grown into those adults? Have they grown into those older brothers? And so that being said, I think they have a 50-50 chance. It all depends on how they execute on the field, because I know at this point I'm confident the offense is going to be able to hang. It's just, will they be able to execute enough and contain Josh Allen for the offense to put up enough points to win? And now we are joined by our next guest, Mr. Douglas McCray. How are you doing, Big Doug? It was a pleasure to meet you week 1, sir.
Fellas, what's happening?
What's going on?
There's my king.
There's my king.
I'm in the mountains. You guys probably can't hear me.
Oh, Lord, he's like in the shadow realm somewhere. I totally freaked me out there. You got guys hide behind bushes on me.
Yeah, your self-service right now, Reed, sounds like you're in the middle of a mountain somewhere. But
sound like R2-D2.
Yeah, Big Doug, we had a question submitted by Scott Hartley. And his question was, if we win Sunday, do you think this sends a message and statement to the league and the national media that we are a franchise on the up? And how much of a percentage chance do you give us of getting the win?
Well, first of all, yes. If you beat the Bills at home, in what should be a largely home crowd, I think, raucous again, then yeah, I think that puts everybody on notice. Look, I said Sam Howell made adjustments from week 1 to week 2. If he can make those same kind of adjustments from week 2 to week 3, like that's kind of what you're hoping for, right? They can't get off to they can't go down 21-3 against the Bills and expect to win a football game.
Correct.
They've been down both their wins. They've had to come from behind. this is not the week for that.
Nope.
I definitely think they have if we're just going to stand in there and trade punches, I think we can do that. I think the defense is good enough to do that. So I like their chances. And I don't know. The interesting about this week is we're playing with house money, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Like
I
this
agree.
one feels like no matter what, we're out there big spending because we went up big on blackjack and we got some extra funds to slap around. And if we walk out of here even money, then we're probably feeling pretty good, right? I mean, let's compete.
I'm
Yeah, I
with you
agree.
there, and I think Ron Rivera would agree, and I think that's the big measuring stick here is that maturation of this football team to say, you're not here to take because Ron Rivera talked about in that post-game speech of the team, you don't have to wait till somebody punches you in the mouth to be able to come out attacking and aggressive, and that's what you want to see this weekend in this football team saying, we're not going to wait for anything. We are bringing the authority to you, and that would be a beautiful sight to see with this football team because they have the players to be able to do it. Now, Big Doug, this next question from Chris Comerton. If we pull ahead early against the Bills, do you think EB will keep his foot on the gas, or do you think Rivera thing and just run the ball down their throats? I, for one, want to see us keep our foot on the gas. It would be nice to be putting teams away, not necessarily the Bills, just in general.
They started out with 30 passes in the first half last week. And I thought it was insane, but this is what the NFL is now, right? Used to be that you run to set up the pass. Right now, we're passing to set up the run. We did that last week. Look at the in-game adjustments. When's the last time we've seen that here in Washington? I mean, really, it was fantastic last week what they did. So I'm excited about what they're still learning what works, right? They're still learning what is best for this group. A lot of people thought we'd be tight end heavy because of what they were in Kansas City, but that's a lot of 11 personnel with our three best wide receivers out there a lot of the time. So I like that. The screen game, right before last week's game,
Yep.
I said two things on my Twitter. I said, I'd like to see more screens and I'd like to see more design blitzes. We got both of those last week. I think both of those will be important again for this week.
Yeah, and especially going against Josh Allen, I talked about in the spaces, having those rushing lanes and being organized in those rushing lanes, consistent, constraining it, and not allowing Josh Allen that room in the middle of the field. The defensive tackles pinching on the center is going to be very important in this football game because, Josh, his big-ass body, nobody wants to go tackle him while he's running full speed 15 yards downfield, right? But in my opinion, I think Eric Bienemy is going to keep his foot on the gas, but he is not going to do it in a dangerous way, like a basketball shot, for instance. Like, he's not going to be going up doing the half court 3 feet back from the 3-point line type shots, right? What he's going to do is instead of doing that, he's going to call the plays that get you that jump shot, that easy, clear jump shot right in the middle, just to get the easy, consistent 2 points. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's only going to run the football to try to liquidate the clock, so to speak. But like Big Doug said, they're passing to open up the run. You can always still use that in those situations because the team is expecting for you to run. So I do think that Eric Bieniemy is going to keep his foot on the gas and not try to just bleed the clock out just to get out of there with the W. I think Eric Bieniemy is very smart in that way, and that he knows that he doesn't want to give the Bills a chance to come back, but in the same breath, you don't want to lay down like the Falcons did in the Super Bowl 28-3 and kind of just give away your chances of scoring to separate yourself, because that could be the difference in the game based on a crazy-ass comeback. What do you say, Hall?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same lane as you. I think that he's not going to keep his foot on the gas, but he'll keep it like whenever you're coasting, like going like on the highway. You know what I'm saying? Like you just got your foot on the pedal, but you're not actually pressing down on the pedal. You're just kind of coasting, going with the flow of traffic. And I think that like obviously you go up big or you get a nice sizable lead, you're going to want to try to bleed the clock a little bit, but in the same breath, the Bills know you're going to try to bleed the clock out, so they're going to stack the box up. They're going to start to stop the run as much as possible. Next thing you know, you got a couple 3-and-outs. They come down and score a couple times. Next thing you know, you're in a dogfight and going into the fourth quarter or later. And we've seen how that goes in the past with Washington. It doesn't typically end well for us. Obviously, new era, new times, but those things obviously kind of creep into your mind and possibly into the players' minds as well. So I think that, like I said, I think he'll kind of coast and he'll pretty much, to use his terms, he'll do what they need to do to drag their asses collectively across the finish line. So if he has to pass the ball to set up the run in the second half or to bleed the clock out. If he has to pound the ball with Brian Robinson up the middle or outside zones, whatever it may be, to kind of bleed the clock and just get us across the finish line, I think he'll do that. So either way, I think that he'll do what it needs to be done to collectively drag their asses across the finish line.
Yeah, right now Washington is 17th in the league, averaging 107 rushing yards per game. The defense for the Bills, they are 19th in the NFL on defense, and giving up 113 rushing yards per game. We kind of talked about their defense being top 10 in some of those categories. Third down percentage is 17th. To your point, Hall, so running the football is going to be very important here. Talking about with Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, I think this is the Antonio Gibson game. They have a linebacker named Bernard who reminds me of myself, kind of a smaller guy, but they use him in order to line him up on tight ends and running backs. And in passing situations, I think this is a chance that you could utilize Curtis Samuel and AG against somebody like that and being able to get them out in space, out in the open, and be able to move around. Now, this next question, Big Doug. This is from Tim Towner in the Discord. If Logan Thomas is out, would you promote Alex Arma or Jabril Cox?
I'd like to go back for just a second if we can, Kyle. I thought that a lot got credited to EB last week, rightfully so, but I thought Ron kind of called the game in a way that, like, he took timeouts for points. Yep. And it feels like we kind of haven't felt that aggression from him in a while. Maybe that's still the EB effect where it's like, hey, boss, we're trying to score points here, but it didn't feel like that's always what we were doing in Washington. So whoever was responsible for that, I think Ron should get a little bit of credit for kind of going that way.
Yeah, and I think that probably has a lot to do with the confidence in the offense, right? Like if you're looking at Carson Wentz and Taylor.
That first game, Kyle, they could have put up 30 the first game.
Easily.
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about.
40 this last game, right?
Yeah, and that's what I was talking. That's why I was angry, because I was like, you guys can't sit here and tell me that Howell doesn't need to get better. If they play like this every week, they're not going to win another game, especially with our schedule. They obviously did that last week against Denver. They got a lot better. They did what they needed to do, and they did exactly what this football team needed them to do, and that was score. And they did it throughout the entire game. And I know people were saying, Kyle, the guy on YouTube, was saying, Kyle, you don't think EB made any adjustments? No, of course I do. I'm just saying EB's kind of game plan going into the game, I thought was fantastic. He called a great game, but it fell on the execution. And EB makes adjustments on the fly. He doesn't wait till the second half, is my point. And the only difference that you really saw was execution on the field by the players in that second half. They didn't have the sacks, the penalties, the crazy stuff that go on that kind of make you feel like EB made adjustments. That's my whole point, is everyone keeps saying EB's great at making adjustments that second. He didn't. I think it was just execution, and his game plan going in was phenomenal, and he didn't have to do all that much. Just came down to the players doing what they needed to do. But question, Alex Arma, yes. Jabril Cox, if Logan's out.
Well, I'd like to see a little work from Jabril Cox. I was a big fan of his coming out. I mean, I guess if they want to run a fullback, then you bring up Arma. Last week, for those that know me well, know that I'm a big John Bates fan. So for him to kind of have that game that I've been waiting for, I don't think that we have to be in a big rush to pull up another tight end. I think they're fairly good there. Actually, like I said, they run a lot more 3 wide receiver sets than they do the 2 tight end sets. Yep. So I'm not necessarily sure it's important to have that. So I don't know. I'd like to see Jabril Cox get a little work just because I was a fan of his coming out of college. But again, hard to get linebackers on the field, and you're still standing in line behind Khaliki Hudson, who this coaching staff, if nothing else, has shown you there is a pecking order. We will be standing in line for the jobs, and you'll have to earn it. So either one of the guys that get brought up probably don't get a ton of work anyway.
For me personally, I would go with Alex Arma. I respect Jabril Cox a lot, and I think that the way Buffalo's defense works is going to force the secondary in particular. They're going to have to run a lot. They're going to be doing a lot of deep field stuff. That's what the Buffalo Bills love to do to you. They love to make you run, go deep downfield. But they're also going to force you to come up, make tackles. You know, they'll go those very strong side tight end sets, like very on the left side, and then run it to that side, bounce it outside, and force your DBs to come up, make that tackle. And so when you're running in tight a lot, it's going to be difficult. But that being said, I would rather bring Alex Arma up, knowing that they're 19th in rushing yards, knowing their linebacker situation with Milano, being able to use Arma. I know Chris Rodriguez is good as a fullback, kind of as a gimmick one at most. But if you bring Arma up, you feel solid about using him in those formations. And not having Logan Thomas, you can still keep John Bates on the field, who basically is like a second lineman, and then have another kind of like John Bates guy and Alex Arma running behind him. I think that's a good recipe for success for this football team, being able to establish a run game, control the clock, and then be able to hit them deep when they're not expecting it.
Quickly, Kyle, and I would not have known this. Bill's sideline reporter Sal Capaccio was on with me the other day. Last week against the Raiders, this was an NFL record. The Bills defense gave up 9 carries to Josh Jacobs for -2 yards.
No,
So
I don't like that stat. The only reason I don't like that stat, Doug, is because the week before that, remember, the Broncos held Jacobs to 41 yards. And so my question is this about their defenses, or is something terribly wrong with the Las Vegas running game at this moment?
Well, quite possibly, but Josh Jacobs is
it's crazy, right?
excellent running back, if nothing else, right? We can agree on that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of crazy his start to the year. That's why I'm
He
wondering.
missed a good amount of time though, right?
Yeah.
Early during camp, maybe still getting adjusted. Either way, though, I mean, having negative yards. I had him in fantasy, dude. I was so pissed.
Yeah, you should be. Now, Reed, real quick, if Logan Thomas is out, would you promote Alex Arma or Jabril Cox? Actually, you know what? I already know your answers. Jabril Cox. Hall, go.
I would say I'd probably do say Arma, just for the simple fact of we don't really use a lot of linebackers on the field in our defense. If anything, we're going to add another safety on the field or another defensive lineman for that kind of bear front or that 5-man front, whatever they want to call it. So I think that Alex Arma would be the move. Obviously, I got faith that John Bates, obviously, he just showed in the passing game that he can get down the field and make catches down the field. And I think that obviously we're seeing Cole Turner get more and more involved into the offense every single week. So I have faith that those two guys can hold it down if Logan is out or can't go for this game. And and at the end of the day, if you go back to Kansas City, Eric Bienemy has history running with a lot of heavy tight end sets in Kansas City, 2-3 tight end sets. So you can put Arma on the field. Like you said, you can use him as a blocker. He's not going to be a tail type player where he's on the field. Okay, it's definitely a run play. So he can kind of get active in the passing game as well. So just like John Bates is kind of showing he can too. So I think that I think Alex Arma would be the move. But if they promoted Jabril Cox, I wouldn't be mad, just because I did a little player breakdown on him coming out of college for the show, and I liked his little attributes. And he definitely has speed. And if you're going against a mobile quarterback like Josh Allen, who likes to get outside the pocket, create, it wouldn't hurt to have a guy opposite Jamin Davis that can kind of close the gap from sideline to sideline.
Yeah,
I am kind of surprised, though, Kyle, that you chose an Arma, because we know that you'll choose Cox over everything 90% of the time.
That's what my joke was, man. You're 5 minutes late.
I was thinking somewhere Reed was upset because it's Hodges who his good buddy Logan Paulson is super high on.
Yeah,
so would it be Hodges instead of Arma?
Yeah,
that's
a good question. Yeah,
that is a great question.
But let's be honest, Logan, the guy, what a guy, but he's you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Reed, let's keep it with you. This question was submitted on Twitter through DM by the Silent Killer. His question is, what's our game plan got to consist of to not let Josh Allen run on us and kill us with his legs? If we stop that or contain it for the most part, I say we win.
Yeah. First of all, how nervous were you? Check your DMs and saw a message from Silent Killer.
It's Fly Guy. He just changed his ad.
Okay, that was terrified you. I mean, obviously, part of me wants Allen to run at times because he's known for fumbling as of late, because he always tries to be super. But yeah, I mean, our D line, Josh Allen he said himself, this is possibly the best unit in the league. So I just think being able to contain him is key, and you just got to get after him. You got to get pressure on him. I know he's tough. I know he's big, but just staying in his face and staying on him, I think is going to be a huge key.
Did Mike Reed just say unit?
Unit. Unit.
He's always thinking about the word unit. Something.
Okay, Kyle, come on.
All right, now what about you, Big Doug?
Ask me the
Family
question
show.
again. I was so messed up
By the
Reed
unit?
saying it.
Yeah, I got it. What's our game plan got to consist of to not let Josh Allen run on us and kill us with his legs?
Well, I don't think they want him running like he once did. I mean,
Correct.
I guess the easy answer is you spy him with Jem and Davis, right? But I don't know. It'll be interesting. This will be a good test for whatever the plan is, because the plan doesn't get easier as far as mobile athletic quarterbacks go in the next couple of weeks, right? Like I know the plan is not to look forward, but I mean, as far as running goes, you've got, the kid up in Philly and Justin Fields, and those guys are going to try to do the same thing like you. So this to me will be a good litmus test for how they can contain a quarterback that would look to get busy on you. To me, the bigger thing is, can they contain James Cook? The run defense has not been great, particularly in first halves of the last two games. And if you think James Cook is just going to scat back you to death, then you haven't been paying attention. He definitely can run between the tackles.
Yep.
So to me, that's the run defense has been the weak link as far as I'm concerned the first couple of games, and I would not have thought that we'd be talking about that in week 3.
No, absolutely. And obviously, there were two very good running games that we were going against. Obviously, Arizona's, that's the only thing that they really truly had. But I was impressed by Dobbs, but also Denver, Javonte Williams, Samaje, they did well. The Buffalo offense, they are 7th in rushing yards, averaging 140 on the ground. To your point, Doug, right now the Washington defense is 17th in rushing yards given up. They have to clean that up, to your point there. For me, obviously, Josh Allen right now is number 1 in the league in completion percentage at 76.9. When you look at the aggressiveness on next-gen stats, he's at the bottom of the list in terms of how aggressive he's throwing the football. Now, you could have looked at before last week and that you would have seen something similar to Russell Wilson. But I learned this last season. Whenever I talk about that aggressive damn stat, that week that team comes out firing against Washington and throwing deep balls. And so I think what Buffalo's offense is changing, where they're trying to turn Josh Allen into Sam Howell. They're going to keep him in the pocket and have him use his legs when he only needs to, not be the consistent running game, obviously, that there is. They want it to be more pro style in that sense. But all I'm going to say is they cannot lose those rush lanes. Because when those DBs, they turn their back on him, he's going to bite them in the butt. And they have to be able to contain Josh in that pocket. And it's going to be hard to get tip balls in this game, but that would be a great way to be able to get an interception on Josh. And if you're able to get up on him, he's going to get impatient. He's going to force some things. And you saw like against the Jets, when he gets impatient and he feels like he has to do something, that your defense is in a very good position to make a play. Hall?
Yeah, I think that so if you go back to Dallas last year, Sam's first start, obviously Dallas was a high-powered offense last year with Kellen Moore, like to throw the ball all over the yard, put up points, whatever. And the key to that game was the defense got off the field on third downs early and often. Washington was able to control the clock with the run game, and in turn they were able to frustrate Dak, create turnovers, and give Sam short fields, therefore putting our offense on the field more, keeping their offense on the field, can't score as many points. So I think that the same kind of game plan has to go into this as far as defense is going to have to get off the field on third downs. You can't give up the back-breaking scrambles and, Josh Allen getting outside the pocket and running for 5, 6, 7, 8 yards on a third and long and just extending their drive, extending the clock, extending their chances to score points. And if you go back to 2021, Montez and Chase are on the edges just rushing up the field. You got to be able to create that blanket, that umbrella in the pocket, like you were talking about, stay in your rush lanes and just make sure that if he tries to escape, you're able to swim off your blocker, push off your blocker, step over, step up, and get him. And I definitely think that –
imagine like a horseshoe is what you're trying to create around Josh Allen.
Exactly, like a U-shape, yeah. And I think that the middle pressure between Jonathan Allen – and Daron Payne. Obviously, Daron Payne's been getting a lot of hype, rightfully so, for the past couple of weeks because he just went Hulk mode, beast mode, and taking over games. I think this is the Jonathan Allen game to remind people like, hey, I'm still here. I'm still that Pro Bowler. They're about to be 3 years in a row. I think he steps up and has a big game pushing the pocket up the middle. But, yeah, I think the game plan is going to have to be keep Allen in the pocket with that horseshoe U shape, try to create a turnover or two, and give short fields to the offense so that EB can kind of scheme something up in the on their side of the field.
Yeah, and to your point, Hall, obviously Buffalo most likely is going to be throwing a lot of short stuff to keep that completion percentage up. But do not be surprised when they do go on you deep, and they will try to force that issue. Josh is there. You can't fall asleep. And honestly, Kendall, Benjamin St. Juice, Emmanuel Forbes, they haven't been tested much, but I guarantee you, seeing that Marvin Mims thing last week, they're going to test E-Man when he is on that field. So he's got to get ready for it. Got to get a little smarter. It's all right. It happens. But, just get a little bit better on being able to see that. Real quick, very quickly, guys. Can the Commanders get a lead and play with it this week, Doug? Reginald T. Skinner on Twitter says, I'm seeing a 24-21 win this weekend. Yes or no?
Yes. Possible, not likely, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What about Hall?
He said he's a sizable lead or just a lead, play with a lead?
Playing with a lead.
I mean, it's possible to play with a lead because you can get the ball first and go up 3-0. So that's possible. But I would say playing with a lead, in my opinion, is a touchdown, a possession or more. So I would say likely not, but I would love to see that because we haven't seen this defense actually play with a lead for many, many seasons now.
They've got to win the turnover battle, Kyle.
Yep.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the gambling aspect of this is, imagine if the Bills were facing the Miami Dolphins next week, 1-2. That's a must-win game, and that would bring a lot of emotions heading against that divisional matchup. Now, this next, thank you, Reg. That was a fantastic question, brother. Now, to read, this is from Paul Murphy. Josh Allen is known for his deep throws and making massive chunk plays. After his errors in week 1, we noticed more short to medium range throws from him in week 2. Given we give up chunk plays to the Broncos, will Buffalo revert to these deep throws, and how can we stop them?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of know, at this point, what kind of quarterback Josh Allen is. Every quarterback, people will go through slumps. People will make some mistakes, especially early in the season. Eventually, Josh Allen's going to be Josh Allen again. And let's just hope it's not this week. Let's hope, they will take some shots, especially, like you said, after seeing what the Broncos did last week early on. But, yeah, let's just kind of hope we can limit those and our offense can put up some points.
Yeah, you're absolutely right because Lorenzo earlier made a great point talking about that disruption because the Bills' offensive line did a pretty good job against Max Crosby, who destroyed the Denver line a week before, and we kind of saw what we did to Denver. And so it's a big matchup for this football team and getting after the quarterback. And so I think you're absolutely right about that. I do think they're going to stress it, dude. They are going to throw the ball downfield. I don't think it's going to be all be all, but I don't want to see Josh Allen having easy throws. Like, I want them to make it difficult on Josh Allen to do this. And getting that disruption is going to be very important. And they have a good offensive line. But making Josh Allen flustered is obviously going to be important point number one. And Daron Payne practicing today in a limited capacity, which is good news, which means he could be there Sunday because we know he's more likely than not, he's the one that's going to be helping out in that regard. Now, boys, to wrap up, let's do some previews for this show, for the game this weekend against Buffalo Bills Alumni Weekend. Big Doug, start us off on our predictions. What is your score prediction and MVP?
Oh goodness! All right, let me see. I will. I'm gonna take. I have the Bills winning this one.
You have the Bills winning?
Yeah, I think it's a close one. I don't know. It's something like 27-24. I think it is what we're looking at. I think it's a good battle, and to me, like I said, they're playing with the house money. If they could be close in this one, then they have another one in Philly the week after that, or against Philly, and then the Bears. I mean, if you're telling me that we can be 3-2 here, that's kind of how I had this thing sorting out. I think the offense is better than I expected, even though people will say that it's taken them too long to get started, which I agree with. But they're putting up points. There's no doubt about that. I think they can stand in the ring and slug with Buffalo all game long. Like I said, to win the game, they've got to get the turnover battle. I think it'll be close.
I'm with you. Reed, what is your prediction? Score and MVP.
Let's see. Score, two elite quarterbacks in the NFL just going up against each other. I'm going to say we're winning. We're going to let me think about this one. I'm going to say 31 to 28, but I'm giving the edge to the Commanders. They're going to go down early, like always, and they're going to fight their way back, and they're going to get this W. And it's going to be – and then my MVP, I'm going to go with the boy. If he plays, I'm going with Daron Payne. I just think what we've seen Deron Payne do these last 2 weeks has been nothing short of incredible, dude. The guy is like asserting his athleticism, strength, and the dude is dominant, dude. And I'm excited for that he's taking that next step for even further from last year to be even closer to that elite status. And what's it called? I got to go real fast. I got to pick up James and Lindsay from Lindsay's mom's house. They're pulling up. Yeah. Oh my God, Mike made it all the way till the end.
Sure, tell your boyfriend we said hello. Sure.
I will. Bye, Doug.
That's so
Bye,
weird.
Dougie,
that was way too natural on your
Kyle,
behalf.
shut up, dude.
Kyle. that was just rolled off the tongue. It was very weird.
Kyle, are you a man of the Bible?
Shut up. Get out of here. All right, Mike.
Step back.
It was good to see you.
Leaf. All right.
For me, I think this is a 31 to 27 type of game. I think that if you keep it within a field goal, that's when things could get really testy at the end of the game. But I do think a special teams play is going to ultimately be the difference in this football game. If somebody is able to make that play, possibly turnover, whatever have you, it's going to really help in this game, because we got to remember Sean McDermott coming from Ron Rivera. These are two teams that know each other. I'm not going to say by player and player very well, but by schematic, by the structure of things. They know each other very well, and that's why Eric Bienemy is the difference here, because he does offer something different in the sense that, yes, you could use his Kansas City film, but that's not going to tell you the whole story, because he didn't have the personnel he does now. And vice versa, you could look at this team last year, but you wouldn't be able to say that's how Eric Bieniemy is going to use them. So I think if anyone has the upper hand in this regard, I think it's Washington with Eric Bieniemy. I think they get the win 31-27. The MVP, Curtis Samuel.
I think another big game for Chase Young too.
We're gonna need it.
I could see another sack and a half game this week for sure.
Doug, I'll tell you right now, what I saw on film, that is the rookie Chase Young. It's the rookie Chase Young.
He's back.
He is.
I hope he can do.
It's beautiful to see that quick. First game back. Amazing to see. There is no having to be patient with it, trying to see some like immediate. And I know he's happy about that.
For sure. Definitely hope
last year was an ACL. This is a different thing. He couldn't get on the field till the doctor said so. Last year, I think he was a little timid, which is fine. Big surgery. But this year was not his fault. He was amping to get back.
100%. 2 games in a row, big plays by Chase. Honestly, could be the difference in the game. But I'll say that it's a close game. I think that the weather's going to play a factor. So I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, because it's supposed to be some crazy rain, crazy wind up here this weekend. So I'll go low-scoring game. I think we lose a close one, 20-18.
I was just about to say, after looking at the stats, you're absolutely right, Hall. Keep going. You're right.
20-18, low-scoring game. I think, like you said, unfortunately, a special teams mishap. I called it last week. It happened early in the game.
Yeah, I need you to stop doing that.
Sorry. I mean, I don't know. I'm just calling it like I see it.
You did it with the miscommunication, blown coverage against Denver.
Look, I can't help my Holster-Dominant skills. It just happens.
I just wish you would use it like Batman, like for the good.
I'm trying to use it for the greater good. Get it up. Look, they got it out the way early last game, so it didn't have to come back to bite them in the fourth quarter. So I put it out there. They got it out the way early. But no, I think that this week, only because of the weather, I think even if it does happen early, it'll be the difference in the game. Bad weather. It's going to be a grinded out game, heavy in the run game. I will say, though, if they do try to sling the ball over the field, and Josh Allen, like you said, whenever it gets close or things get tight, he kind of gets a little bit anxious and makes that mistake. I think that the weather kind of bodes well for us, because wet ball, tip passes, fumbles, whatnot. So I think that even still, I do think we can win the game. I definitely think we cover. It's like 6.5. But
it is 6.5, yes.
I'm hoping that it's a win, but I do think it'll be a close loss, 20-18. And I still think, even with us losing that game, we put the rest of the league and the national people on notice that this is a team to be dealt with in the NFC, especially a weak NFC, if they want to call that, even though
it's wide open. I've been saying
we've been smashing the AFC lately, but I think that that puts Washington in that tier 2 of teams, like, okay, they can compete in the NFC. So,
and it's a loss to an AFC team. Right?
Exactly. So, I mean, a top-tier AFC really at that. But MVP, I'll say, like I said before, I think Jonathan Allen shows that I'm just as dominant as Deron, and I'm still the Pro Bowler just like him. I think he has 1+ sacks, couple pressures, maybe a fumble recovery. That's going to be my MVP.
Now that's going into your point about the low-scoring game. On offense, Buffalo is 7th in red zone conversion percentage. Washington is 13th. Defensively, Buffalo is 8th in giving up 40% clip. Washington 3rd with a 33%. So we're going to see a battle of a very good offense in the red zone, being in Buffalo, facing against a top 5 number 1 unit in Washington in third down. And that's what I meant earlier by saying I think the defense being able to limit the point total by the Buffalo Bills is going to be so important. Every field goal they can force is a successful drive, in the defense's opinion, for me. And so that's what I'm looking for. If you get turnovers, that's cherry on top, dude. You already get a game beer. Let's go, and let's rock. And hopefully Washington is able to limit their own turnovers and everything of that regard. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. Big Doug, it was a pleasure being able to meet you at Game 1, man. I'm glad that being able to see you and your family out there before that game. I know the conditions were kind of crappy with the weather and everything, but it was an amazing football game to go and witness. It was even better to be able to see you and the UK boys, man.
It was nice to see you boys too, and I mean I met that the love was in crazy, and I'm sad. It made me want to move back. I missed the atmosphere. You know what I mean? We don't get to as many as we'd like to, but it was all love, and it was great to see you guys for sure.
Absolutely, Doug. And I can't thank you enough for being able to join us. Obviously, it's a lot to come on to your day for 30 minutes to come on and talk about something.
No, I love it. No, I do it every week.
My man. Big Doug, I can't thank you enough. All right, everybody. We will see you on Monday. Have a great, safe weekend. Let's pray for health, success, and a great victory this weekend for the Washington Commanders. I'll see you on Monday, everybody. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
I'm Big Doug.
You should have said I'm Mike Reed, but it's all good.
I sure did.
I'll do it for him. I'm Mike Reed. I don't know. That was bad. All right, everybody. We'll see you on Monday. Washington football. Woo! Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. And if you liked what you saw, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you get notified when anything new is uploaded to the channel. Also, we just launched the BurgundyZone.com. You can go there and find all of our latest news, articles, and the latest episodes that are uploaded. Again, we also have the Discord chat server, where all of our VIP folks are in, like Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, Sergio Martin is in there as well. Don't miss out on the Discord chat server. Go and check that out. Until next time, everybody, Washington football. Woo!